What can I, Julie, have you got me spotlighted?
Um,
No.
I will spotlight you right now. There you go.
Yes, I'll probably do a proper start. Hello, everybody. We will make a start in a very short moment. Yeah, so this is the book for those that haven't seen it. Although you may have seen a message on social media that there's actually been 12 of the limited edition have come out of the woodwork. So they are available from Polari Press at the price of £24, but they are absolutely stunningly beautiful. And you never know, they might be worth £5 in 10 years. So they are available, or there's a standard edition at £9. The standard edition are all signed for better or worse and numbered. Right, I'll make a start. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. As I say, Peter Collins sends his apologies. He's out touting for work. Peter is the founder and designer of Polari Press, who publish queer and other marginalised voices, in particular our hidden histories, and they do that through poetry, prose, memoir, and plays. It's yeah, I mean, I'm so impressed with Peter. You know, one of the, as those that know me well will know, that one of the things I go on and on about is how I feel that the period of the AIDS pandemic as it hit the UK sort of broke many of those threads connecting the older and younger generations of queer men and queer people, and that many stories have been lost, in the sense that you know, I would say there are very few queer people less younger than 35 who even know who Derek Jarman is, which is a crying tragedy and one of the reasons why I wrote the book. But A Finger in Derek Jarman's Mouth is the second book, sorry, in 3 books that I'm doing with Polari. So the first one was Isle of Sin, which was a mixture of 2 things. It was the story of the queer history of the Isle of Man around the late 80s, early 90s, because sex between men was only made partially legal in 1992. And it's a story of Alan Shea, the gay rights campaigner. But it also includes the story of another hidden person, a man called Dursley McLinden, who was born 6 months before me in the same hospital. And for those that watched It's a Sin, Richie Towser, the person played by Ollie Alexander, was inspired by Dursley McLinden, who died of HIV/AIDS in 1995. The third book actually is going to be called Patient L1, which is a biography memoir of Jonathan Blake, as one of the first people in the UK to be diagnosed with HIV. And for those of you who watched the film Pride, he was played by Dominic West, even though he assures me you didn't dance on the tables. So that book is coming out in February with Polari, and hopefully a full-length collection at some point after that. So today what we're going to sorry, I should have stopped sharing screen, shouldn't I? Apologies for that. We're joined by the wonderful Alice Hiller. First of all, I'm going to read one of the poems from A Finger in Derek Jarman's Mouth. Then we're going to hear from Alice. Then Alice is going to quiz me with some very difficult questions, and then you'll be happily sent on your way to the website to buy a book. most of the poems in this book are in the voice of Derek Jarman, with the exception of 2.5 poems. So I wanted to start with one of the poems in my voice, which sort of, if you like, summarizes some of the reasons why I wrote this book. And it's called Dear Derek Jarman. I too have HIV, but much too late for death, not too early to be saved. I've built a garden somewhere, but you did it nowhere. You said my garden's boundaries are the horizon, but you didn't only mean Dungeness when you said there are no walls or fences. You weren't describing our inward journey or casting a shadow across the floor of heaven. After you made those films, you don't know, rivulets ran through my parched grass, as if being banned and disliked is a pinnacle after all. You refused to die without the sun rising, without stones threaded and hung in a garden that grew out of nothing, without going quietly, smiling in slow motion, an iceberg dropping from the sky, the ripple still licking shingle in a one-way tide. So I'm delighted to welcome and introduce my darling friend Alice Hiller, whose debut Bird of Winter was published by Liverpool University Press and shortlisted for the Forward Prize for First Collection in 2021 and the John Pollard Prize in 2022. I am extremely jealous of the fact that not only was Alice a features journalist, but she wrote a book on the history of the T-shirt. And she holds a PhD from UCL and was a Forward Prizes judge for 2022. I got to know Alice through what I think will probably be best to be called a movement called Voicing Our Silences, which resources and encourages poets to respond to complex material and complex experiences. She also blogs and interviews poets and shares performance tests and creative resources at alicehiller.info, and there'll be all her links in the thing. Alice is going to share some of her new work, which I've had the privilege of seeing some of, called I Am Colour, which could not be better to join the blue of Derek Jarman, and I'm sure you will be moved by it as I am. Alice, thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Simon. It's a real joy to be reading in celebration of Simon's visually beautiful and deeply moving poems, responding to Derek Jarman's work and life. As Simon said, reflecting the importance of colour to Jarman and to this book, he wanted me to read from I Am Colour. It's not been read publicly before, other than in a churchyard in Ledbury, so forgive me if I'm nervous. It tracks my life from birth to 18 through poems and interlinked essays, which are each named for the colour at their centre. Using my own direct experiences with my mother, I wanted to investigate how sexual abuse embeds in the roots of a growing child's life, but equally how children can resist and live beyond that crime by engaging with sources of love, and you'll get poems of both to come. I'm going to be sharing the introduction, followed by the poems that go up until my 8th birthday. In each poem, the first part is spoken by my child self at that age, while the second is the adult me responding. I am colour. Things happened in darkness, sometimes by moonlight. If I look backward, I will discover their colour. Growing up, I was undone by the white light of day's denials. Later, I came to see how memory is the prism that bends and slows all those unspoken things to revelation. Shade by shade, its actions, people, the absences of our wavelengths. What follows are reclamations. It took many years to look for my own beginnings. As shadows, my younger selves waited. At the edge of visible light, the first one was violet. Violet. The bigger I grow, the tighter violet walls press. I curl into a ball and wreck my way out. Soon mummy mends, then she wants me back where I belong. Quickly she grows 2 milky doorknobs, whispering, "Suck me, come home." Violet lies adjacent to invisible ultraviolet. Buddhists associate violet with the crown chakra. Potassium permanganate is a violet solution used for cleansing wounds. Renaissance angels wear violet robes. In Werner's nomenclature of paints, violet is Berlin blue mixed with red, a little brown. Chalk. The sea is hurrying up over the sand. Papa and me push our nets through the waves. Wind fingers pull our hair. Shrimps tickle our toes. After Papa piggybacks me up the chalk path, where wildflowers whisper, we grow safe here. Millions of years ago, coccoliths fell to the beds of shallow seas and formed chalk layers. Particles of chalk adhere to rough surfaces. Chalk is mined to make bricks and plaster. A deep chalk seam joins Europe and England. Artists mix chalk with oils to add luminosity. Indigo. Mummy says, let's have a bubble bath together. She pulls off her indigo petticoat and drops it. She says, get in with me. I take off my clothes too. Then Mummy opens her legs so my little fishes can swim down until they reach her slippery cave. Indigo has been cultivated since the Bronze Age. Indigo plants are beaten and then fermented to precipitate their colour. Indigo is part of many cultures' funeral customs. Enslaved labour produced large volumes of indigo from 1500. Indigo is the most lasting natural stain. Green. Brussels station bangs and echoes. Our beds are shelves. Mummy drinks her whiskey, then climbs up beside me. Next morning, I cannot walk through the roaring. In the buffet, green fields and hedges rush past us. Then the waiter brings toast and English sausages. Gronya is the Germanic root of green and grow. Osiris, god of the underworld and of rebirth, has a green face. Chlorophyll leaves only green light waves visible. Green Venus, goddess of gardens and vineyards for Romans. Green is one of the three primary colours of human vision. Conquer. Papa's study curtains are leaves. His desk is a conker. When Mummy is in church, we get our paper ready. Then stick men and girls climb through our pencils. Often they swim out to sea or explore deep forests. Every Sunday, Papa and me join in their adventures. Conquer comes from the French verb conquérir, meaning to conquer. Conker flowers are hermaphroditic. Conkers form on erect panicles. A spiked carapace shields the growing conker. Children first played the game of conkers with snail shells. Blue. In Ostend, Papa's feet flip-flop when he leans on his stick. I race myself across the beach in rubber boots. Jellyfish wobble their blue eyeballs up from the sand, but I rush between them, out to the shushing waves, who are whispering, tearing off all their lace frills. The old High German blau means shimmering or lustrous. The first blue pigment was made in ancient Egypt. Blue is linked with harmony and faithfulness. Around the Mediterranean, people wear blue amulets against misfortune. In music, the blues signify melancholy. Mauve. Because I am 8, Papa gives me a watch with a mauve strap. After he goes to hospital for his breathing, I tell the time to my English aunts until one day I forget and jump, splash, into a freezing pool whose cold stops the hands on my birthday watch. Mauve takes its name from the Latin malva. The mallow plant is called la mauve in French. Mauve's sap softens and heals infections. Romans made an omnimorbium, or remedy for all ills, by mixing mauve with wine, honey, oil, and salt. In folklore, mauve stands guardian to the house. White. Men roll away Papa's rugs. Mummy buttons her new coat. I smell clouds of perfume walking past full pews. The Lord is my shepherd, we sing to the long box. Papa's quiet as his pencil, lying under white flowers. He cannot answer when the vicar says, "Goodbye, George." The root of white is quid, meaning to be bright. Sanskrit has words for the whites of sunlight and of stars. In the Lascaux caves, animals and bulbs are drawn in white chalk. A white dwarf is the remains of a stellar core. Because they are achromatic, white objects reflect and scatter light. Thank you very much.
My goodness, Alex, thank you. I think I should have asked you to read second, actually. I will forever be in awe of both your bravery, your courage, and your exploration and search for redemption is just inspiring.
We
And
work
I hope
closely.
everyone else feels an honour for this to be the first proper public reading, not on a beach or not on a pier, that we've heard, and I can't wait to see some more of the poems, and also, of course, when it's finally published. So thank you again, Alice. Let everyone take a breath.
Well, thank you, Simon. You know, we've worked on these poems together, and I was so happy when you asked me to read them for you. And you know, your work deeply, deeply resonates with me. I feel we write in conversation with each other and with other people who are in this audience. It is, you know, it's a conversation and a collaboration, and we move forward together.
Bless you.
And now we want your poems.
Yeah,
we want the main event.
We're going to shift the tone a bit to wake you up. Yeah, Derek Jarman had a thing about Johnnies. This is men called Johnny, and I have to admit I had the same problem. But these are not about my Johnny, but they're about probably the first and the last of Derek's. This is First Love. And Johnny takes me on a bike. I hold him in his pocket and a bomb-damaged house, clinging to his pink and white, like on the road back home, valerian on the verge, which doesn't last long, but there will be a second flowering. Winter flowering, starting with a quote by Derek. Winter flowering, poor violet, violated for a rhyme. My heart sees Johnny jump up, a peach outlives his hand, holds its stem, seed spunk up his abs. Poor Johnny, wanking for a dime. When Derek found Prospect Cottage, he was on a trip with Tilda Swinton, and this is inspired by, well, the first part of the story is inspired by her story, and it's called After the Bluebells Turned to Concrete. We turned left into yellow windows. His taste downed the chintz curtains in Dungeness, the dangerous nose. Could smell its potential, gallons of bitumen paint evaporating in a whiff, just as he wished one day for all his works. The cottage will rot, plants shrivel, gravel blind, film self-combust like gorse. His signature on the grave slate will wash. Long after this decay in concrete and radiation, he will remain in the blue. I'm a big fan of this form of poetry, which I didn't know existed until I eventually found it, called the contrapuntal. And it basically, you can read, in this case, you could read this poem three different ways. So I'm gonna read it two. I'm not quite sure what the second one is yet. Dungeness, the driest body in England, and isolation, sagging shells, radiation in the bones, bleached and skeletal, leaves rotted, sickness blows through me. But the inside, full of oozing dog roses, sea kale, dried out like tumbleweed. Fucking like fair-light donkeys, sex kittens still scamper in gorse passion, my body where it remains, a threaded necklace hanging. More of joy than bother, my garden, red poppies splash the landscape, rusting chains, water to gravel, dust to wind. Dungeness, the driest body in England, but the inside an isolation full of sagging shells, oozing radiation in the bones, dog roses bleached and skeletal, sea kale leaves rotted, dried out. Sickness blows through me like tumbleweed. Fucking like fair-light donkeys, more of a joy than bother. Sex kittens still scamper in my garden. Gorse, passion, red poppies splash my body. The landscape where it remains, rusting chains, a threaded necklace, water to gravel, hanging dust to wind. Powered by HIV, like Dungeness, an overactive fuel, energy from atomic cell destruction, a harsh wind laying waste its beauty, a fission of dreams, drawings and plain bloody-minded will. Keep on trying to keep on, smiling in slow motion like those horsemen riding the tide. One of the things about Derek was he was the first really famous person to declare his HIV status, and did so very soon after he was diagnosed. These next two poems address the scourge of HIV stigma, which certainly in Europe and North America, I would argue, is the largest cause of death of people living with HIV, if not around the world. This first poem, the left-hand side of it is my words, the right-hand side of it are words from Derek, some of which were from an interview with Jeremy Isaacs, but also from other bits of his writing. And the second poem is all Derek, and I'm going to do the same thing. Life confirmed as a poison chalice, a chastity ring, three-lettered, long-sleeved, sick, ugly, throbbing, so well cloaked. If only I knew a chosen silence, sequined boots, awful socks, a time bomb in a ghetto, frightened and unhappy people who can't tell the truth to others and ourselves. My whole body, a struggle, how to make life open and acceptable, to disclose my secret and survive Margaret Thatcher. Life confirmed as a time bomb, a poison chalice in a ghetto, a chastity ring, frightened and three-lettered, unhappy people, long-sleeved, who can't tell the truth, sick ugly to others and ourselves, throbbing my whole body, so well cloaked, a struggle. If only I knew how to make life a chosen silence, open and acceptable, sequin boots, to disclose my secret, awful socks, and survive Margaret Thatcher. HIV, I have a lethal weapon. I detest terminal illness. Stops time. Stigma means become secret. Privacy elaborately murders itself. HIV stigma means I have become a lethal secret weapon. I detest privacy. Terminal illness elaborately stops, murders time itself. The visitors. A host of lichens comes, stubble on a rock-hard chest, mosses too, a muted softness, licks, caresses the feet, like in bed after sex. Even the rarest of beings, I see them in the wind. I hear fungus in my mouth. Crombie Maritima, anointed with a necklace of holy stones and flint from the lowest tide, a new life for driftwood in a sea kale spring bloom. Till now, a purple bud on a corky stem, protruding pink-edged pebbles. If only this were a metaphor for sex. dying away completely in winter, with a sticky honey scent. Grief roots 20 feet deep, losing green fingers one by one, counting the weeks after New Year, till splayed leaf hands turn to bone. It'd be remiss to write anything about Derek without also referencing his longtime companion, Keith Collins. His nickname was Hinny Beast. Derek couldn't spell Hinny right for some reason. I don't know why, but and he was and it was always shortened in his diaries and in their conversations to HB. And Derek was FB, Furry Beast. So this poem is for Keith Collins, aka HB. Honeybees. I've never been stung from the hive, except by accident the once, which now I live with openly, but slowly dying down from its sting. A coffin of railway sleepers will serve me with honey, my hinny beast of true love, my hydrogen bomb of disease, all still here after winter sleeps. My Dungeness gold, even when I've lost the strength to lift my combs, but not to stare at my plants, feel sweetness on my lips. The centre of the book is a excuse me a sec, is a 4-page poem called Blue. As many of you will know, the last film that Derek made was Blue, and part of the illnesses that he had because of HIV, slowly lost his sight. And those of you that have been for these new modern eye tests, they flash a light in your eye. I was at the optician, they gave me one for free. I was in this optician's and it's like, boom, and all of a sudden I shout out, "That's it!" Because that's the blue that you see, the universal climb blue. And he wrote a book about all of the colours and the same sort of exploration that Alice has done, but then particularly wrote this book produced this film from that chapter in the book, where you just see a blue screen. I've only read this once before, recorded, but as I don't want you to try and follow it. What I would do is invite you just to stare and listen. Blue. Come in. Ascend. Size Queen. Come forth. Blue Funk. Blue Dive. Psychophag. Look. 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 Blue fades. Blue love. Buzzing. Haze. Sing. Blue dreams. Blue sucking. Blue crow. Blue voices. Dead. Open door. Room. stone, ground, blue dawn, blue pansy, blue gunpowder, blue pill, electric blue, borrowed blue, light blue, bearded blue, periwinkle blue, duck, blue-eyed boy, blue denim robin egg, sugar bag, blue bud, blood, darkness, blue bell, blue bottle, blizzard, violet, bug loss, delphinium, royal blue, air force blue, blind, liberty, winter, hyacinth, ease, Klein, blue, slow, blue, void, 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 eternity, blue, wild, yonder, belladonna blue, blind blue, blue lines, low blue, universal blue, blue boys, blue flashes, blue lines, blue lips, dead blue, good blue, good looking blue, cool, blue lips, blue kiss, blue rashes, blue hives, blue socks, blue drugs, blue blood, blue sparks, upon blue, in time, forgotten, upon your blue grave. One of the things Derek did was in many of his films, he either queered history or brought to light our queer history and to light our queer ancestors and brothers and sisters. One of those was War Requiem, the opera written by Benjamin Britten and featuring many of the words of Wilfred Owen. So these two poems are, if you like, ekphrastic poems, if you like. They're based on the two scenes in the film War Requiem, which moved me tremendously. One is when the Wilfred Owen character was out in war, and the other is a scene when he came home, when he came back to camp. War Requiem. He kneels before limpness, kisses their spread-eagled body on the bed of barbed wire, but nothing except blood drips, pricked by a harsher steel, love's belly, a dead smile. He stands broken and pale, the other side's soldier limp and departed from his vengeful bayonet, sunk in red flurries. A grasped cornet lies, its choked music smells the thick green odour of last week's man. Their breath still murmurs in that black snow, imprinted in chalk trenches, worrying the torn sky like pity distilled in his patient mind. Concerted effort. Britannia paraded on the stage, dressed in drag, with soldiers in ill-fitting dresses and trenchless boots. A drummer boy appears, in a woolen jumper and a skull cap, his round mouth crimson with an unknowing look. Out of battle, it seemed he had escaped those goodbye faces, his own camouflage painted, but with blusher, showing us his hiding, lipstick smudged memories, shadow on the eyes. I've realised what time it is, so I'm going to pass through this, The Cruel and Unnecessary, and I'm going to finish with the other I poem. When I visit Prospect Cottage, I'll take you 5 dried yellow roses, because one of them fell apart. I'll repaint the wall on the side with the sun rising, and blame black tar for making me cry. Then forget what it was I came here to escape. Twice or thrice I loved before I knew your face and name. Now, smelling wings somewhere between air and angels. Thank you.
That was a fantastic reading. Thank you so much, Simon. Really, really appreciated it. I know everyone else, I can see from the chat, did as well. Very beautiful, very moving.
Thank you.
And I think we're going to talk a little bit about your extraordinary poems now, if we may.
Yeah, sure.
And I think we're going to also do this as a written answer. So we'll start and see where we get to. So in the last poem but one, which you read at the beginning, Dear Derek Jarman, you write, you refused to die without the sun rising, without stones threaded and hung in a garden that grew out of nothing. Those lines held for me the coalescence of life in death and life despite death, which contributes really powerfully to your book's magic. And I just wondered if you could say something about them and that idea of sort of life despite death.
Yeah, I mean, I think, for me, one of the things that strikes me so much about Derek was his response to what was a certain death in a relatively short period of time. And even though, he thought about moving to Dungeness before his diagnosis, he used that opportunity to sort of to reconnect to who he was, or who he thought he was. I should have been a gardener was one of his comments, and equally, for me, it evokes his determination to do something. He wasn't just going to die. He wasn't just going to fade into the distance. He wasn't going to be someone who announced, who got someone else to announce he was HIV positive the day before he died or the day after he died. He was going to talk about it from virtually from day one, and he lived every day. I think time, for him, time became something different. I think as for anyone who is confronted with their mortality, it does tend to do, and that determination to both to continue living, to continue learning, to continue creating, and to do so I mean, none of what he did was down the easy route. You know what I mean? I mean, he chose one of the hardest places in the, certainly the hardest place in the UK. It's the driest place in the UK, and it's, you know, it's the second largest, the only other second largest shingle beach in the world, second to only Cape Canaveral. Um, he didn't choose somewhere. He didn't choose somewhere easy to make something happen. And yeah, for me, they were um, all of them are connections to nature and that determination. And, you know, as you know, without going quietly, smiling in slow motion, which was the title of um, his final memoir, which um, yeah. So for me, I think you know, I've lost people close to me in my life, and at quite a young age, and also obviously contracted HIV. Even though when I did so 11 years ago, it wasn't a death sentence. It still completely causes you to completely um, reassess mortality, your own mortality, and obviously your relationship to other um, to other people in terms of um, that lethal weapon. Um,
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. No, and I think, the sense I got from reading your book, I'm old enough to remember the advent of HIV/AIDS and how it really just took a scythe through the gay, now queer community. And I kind of had a sense of Jarman also speaking, for the many voiceless men whose lives were sort of cut short in that first experience, and some of them desperately young. That was, I remember I live in Fulham, and there was like ads for buddies just in the local paper for young men who'd been cut off by their families, who needed people simply to come and bring them food and sort of give them basic care. I mean, it was within a defined community. It was a terrible and terrifying experience. So to sort of make this life out of it that also acknowledges the presence of death, was very moving at the time. And it's, to me, very powerful that you're bringing it again to another generation. And so, I mean, my next question was that you have these sort of refracted dualities throughout the book. Your Finger in Derek Jarman's Mouth adopts its title from Jarman's collection, A Finger in the Fish's Mouth. And you and Jarman, as you've said, are both out and HIV positive, with the difference that 4 decades makes in terms of treatment protocols. But in speaking queerly with him through blurred and refracted reflections and transmissions of his artworks, films, different things appear in your poems. I wondered if part of your intention was to explore how, without invoking biological intergenerationality, i.e., by having kids, we all live through each other and beyond time, through our enduring vibrations within the lives of others. Because I think that's queer families are now coming into existence through surrogacy, through adoption, but many people who experience themselves as queer people don't see having children as a necessary way to interact with the universe. And this, to me, this book was a really prime example of how, we can leave our mark, we can seed ourselves into future generations simply by being. And I wondered if that was of interest to you.
well, I mean, I think yeah, I mean, certainly with the last book and this one and the next one, the life of Jonathan Blake, um I'm very keen to sort of make up for what I mentioned earlier as being the sort of the a lot of the stories have been lost, and that they need to remain and be told, um, and they'll stand as physical specimens of that. Um, I wouldn't. I'm not quite sure that from my perspective, this is any more than that. But what I would say about the likes of Jarman and his work and all great artists is that there is something that that begets itself from the energy and the creativity that's been endowed in it, that somehow remains. You know, and those of us who've had the opportunity to look at a great piece of art will know that something happens, and it's not just coming from inside oneself. I was telling Rob the other day about he'll remember the name of the sculptor, but in the middle of Berlin, there's a sculpture in this central in this room of a mother holding her dead son from the First World War, and you stand there and watch it, and every single person in that room, having stood quietly for 30 seconds, would cry. You know, and that's because, yeah. So I think, you know, I think I don't believe in a deity, but I believe in universal energy, and I think these great artists somehow manage to inject something into their work that continues resonating. And you know, I was lucky enough to go to the Jarman protest exhibition in Manchester that was also shown in Irish MoMA. And you know, I spent 5 hours there. I went round it twice, and some of the time you just sort of you just look at a piece of art, and in some way you can feel the energy that comes from it. And you know, and I think that um and the more people that remember or if I create an interest in Derek Jarman, then hopefully more and more people will have that experience when they see his art too.
Absolutely. And I'm aware we're coming towards the end of the time, but I wanted to ask you at least one more nice question. And that is simply the physicality of Prospect Cottage and the shoreline at Dungeness moves like a blessing through your poems. You really get a sense of the sort of beauty of it. They're good places where the reader can seek and experience imaginative refuge like Jarman did. At the time of writing, though, I think you had yet to visit. How did you make the site feel so real?
No, you're right. I hadn't visited it. And as Nora's just put in the chat, by the way, I did go and I recorded the whole of A Finger in Derek Jarman's Mouth, sat on the bench outside his kitchen window. So if you go to YouTube, you'll see a channel, and if you want to read all of the other, you want to listen to any of the other poems, or the same poems again, or a different version of Blue, do that. I immerse myself in everything Jarman. I mean, Howard Suley's book is stupendous. Primarily photography, but also commentary about the garden, and Derek's works, and the exhibition, and all of those things. I sort of submerged myself in, including the exhibition at the Garden Museum as well, where they recreated Prospect Cottage. But I think also, you know, coming from the Isle of Man as well, of course, and also see the moving to Brighton. But you know, I've also spent a lot of time in very desolate, dry places, and sat and listened to people who've lived that life. And you know, whether that's in northern rangelands in Kenya, whether it's in southeast Kenya or Zimbabwe or Rajasthan, doing work that sort of, I think, I think over those years I've developed a real sense and connection to land and understand a lot about how that sort of shifts the psyche of human beings in living and surviving in somewhere like that. And you know, Dungeness is the equivalent to that in the equivalent to that in the UK than some of the plains in Rajasthan, I think. I don't know if that answers your question, but
I think it really does, because it sort of gives us a sense of how deeply, you know, you've lived this experience. And in fact, we can go to places and not see them. It's only when we open ourselves to them and they enter us that we really can see them. And, you know, that's absolutely happened with you, with Dungeness, with Prospect Cottage, with Jarman's work. And, you know, this book is such a gift. It really is. I mean, it's tough and it's wonderful. And I love, you know, both those qualities. It doesn't flinch, but it does heal, it does celebrate, and it does exist in a space of joy and remembering. So, you know, it's been, we're on 8:30, just after 8:30, but it's been really wonderful to celebrate it with you, Simon. And anyone who hasn't yet got a copy, buy one immediately, give them to friends. You know, it's got beautiful, beautiful pictures of sea plants and things, but more importantly, it's a transformative work by a wonderful writer who I'm very proud to know and honoured to know. So congratulations, Simon.
Thank you. And I am actually hoping to, you know, talking about the energy, having gone to Prospect Cottage, we went there. You have like hour-long slots, and I booked 4 slots over 2 days. And thankfully, they were very, very lovely about it. We got our Jonathan Blake and I got our dedicated guide. So I spent 4 hours there, and I'm in the middle of trying to persuade them to let me stay there for 1 or 2 nights, because I want to write either a foot in Derek Jarman's door or a night in Derek Jarman's bed, one of the two. I want to write a sequel that sort of focuses more on the internalness of Prospect Cottage and the and what happens there, because as you know, that this book was more focused on the external. So fingers crossed, the stars will align and you'll have a sequel too. But
Excellent.
yeah, thank you everybody. I'll be able to have a look at
buy the book.
I can see there's lots of messages. I'll make sure that I read them afterwards. But I really appreciate you coming. If you want to be heard, I think you can unmute yourself if you like, I think. But
well done.
Yay, thank you.
And thank you, Alice, too. And thank you everyone for coming. And yes, even if you already got the book, tell people about it. Tell people about Derek Jarman, more importantly. He's a treasure.
Well, as are you, Simon, you know, and the torch continues through the generations. So it's been a fantastic evening, really, and wonderful to have so many people here. And as I say, I'm going to interview Simon on the page on my blog, so you'll be able to hear his thoughts in more detail and answer further questions. So, you know, lots more joy to come.
Great. Thank you everybody.
Thanks for a great evening. See you. Bye.